Oh, tomorrow, get now! Get!
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Black Rose Wars painting video. This time around, I'm painting Dukas, the cosplay Spriggan, and his evocation Nimbo. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a while since I've got a painting video out. I'm excited to work on these guys. Dukas and Nimbo from Black Rose Wars. I started off by priming them with gray Stynylrez primer from Badger. And yeah, I started off with the bristles on the broom. I grabbed P3's Bogren Brown and I over-thinned it a little bit. I think I was watching TV more than I was actually painting right here, but I over-thinned it, and it happens sometimes. I'll take it. I'd rather have slightly more thinned out paints and have to do a few extra coats than risk going too thick and clogging up details. So, you know, it happens. You can make it work. You can always just add some paint back in and thicken it up. But like I said, I think I was kind of zoned out watching something and half painting, and still got a good solid coat on there. It might have just taken a little bit longer. So yeah, starting off with the broom. And, you know, I haven't played the game, so I'm curious. Is it the same broom? Is Nimbo the one that Dukas is holding and he gets pissed off and, you know, throws it at you, it grows arms, and then starts beating the crap out of you? So either way, I figured it's more than likely the same broom. I'll paint him the same color. So same P3's Bogren Brown. Started doing the bristles on his broom. Something else occurred to me. These were one of the first characters when this campaign went live that I was scrolling through all the stuff that came in this Kickstarter, and when I saw these, I really appreciated that these guys at LMS have a good sense of humor. I thought these were funny. So these were some of the first minis that sold me on this game way back when, and I've been looking forward to painting them. And it wasn't until recently I just took my boys on a trip to Disney. My wife and I took them for their first trip, and when we came home, it was like, oh yeah, perfect time to take these off the shelf and get them painted. So yeah, going through getting the bristles on both of them, nice and solid, good solid coats. And that'll be a good middle place to start for lightening up and bringing some detail to those brooms. Next up, I wanted to get the handles, or would you call this his torso? I'm not sure. Maybe this is his torso and the other one's a handle. I don't know. But I grabbed P3's Guncore Brown and jumped in and started coating in all the wooden handles and arms and all these bits on Nimbo. And yeah, I mean, I guess that would be his body. I don't know what you would call a broom's body. I'll call it a handle, whatever. But a couple good coats. This is a good place to start. I have a habit of either starting really dark and trying to lighten things up, or starting light and darkening things down. And with these, I want to try a few different things. You'll see throughout the course of this video, and here I'm starting with a middle color. This is supposed to give me the opportunity to get lighter lights and darker darks, maybe. Just trying something a little bit different. So since I came back to painting and got the channel back up, I've decided, you know, I'm only going to do what I want to do, and one of those is trying around, you know, slightly different ways to improve how I paint. And one of those things is trying to be neater and cleaner at the start and have less cleanup work to do as I go. So I'm trying to be a little bit neater as I work, and yeah, so far so good. Really excited to paint these guys, but so far it's pretty basic. I mean, these guys aren't very complicated. So I think it's time to move on to something a bit more substantial, which would be Dukas's robes. So these are a big focal point, and here I do want to go ahead and start dark and lighten up. I think starting at my darkest is going to give me good opportunities to bring in reds and oranges to bump up the contrast on this clothing. But starting off with P3's Sanguine base, and yeah, just kind of slow and steady going through. I'm trying to avoid the rips and the belt, and again, not have a ton of cleanup to do. It happens, especially if you're like me and guilty of half watching TV sometimes, or talking to your kids, or doing something else while you're painting. Sometimes you try to be nice and neat and clean, and you end up forgetting, like I did right here. You're like, la la la. It happens. Yeah, just trying to stay conscious and get better about being neat. But a couple of good coats, got this robe started. starting to click, I think. I don't know. So now that the robe's basically done, I'm going to jump in and start working on the hat. This is blue hat, yellow stars. Again, this isn't overly complicated. It's not rocket science. I mean, there's some Warhammer stuff out there that would be terrifying to paint. And I mean, hell, even looking back at Chrono from Black Rose Wars, that was pretty complex. This is a goblin in a hat. Like, let's not overcomplicate it. Goblin and a broom. Either way, sorry, Spriggan and a broom. Either way, grabbing P3's Signar Blue highlight, I started getting the hat based in and trying to avoid all the little stitching, these places where the stars, I don't know if they're cardboard or fabric, but yeah, I ended up getting sloppy again. It'll be easier to clean up the stitching in the stars than it'll be to continue trying to drive myself nuts with the blue. So yeah, coming along, still waiting for this to click. I haven't got that super excited, like I'm vibing with the concept. I keep thinking I know what these guys look like, so this should be really easy, right? Wow, that's bright. It's like I got new lights at my desk or something. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll mess up the footage and block the lights with my big fat hands. So yeah, moving on. I decided to start working on the flesh, and I remember he's goblin colored and grabbed P3's Rin flesh. It's my basic skin that I start with. It's a go-to, bad habit of mine. And yeah, Jackbone from P3 for the horns, Rucksack Tan for the boots, and chugging right along. Again, it's a pretty basic miniature, so it's not very hard. Moral White from P3 to start picking out the eyes and the teeth, get the gloves done. And, this is about when I started to realize that I know what he looks like. I'm following, I'm a kind of person who likes to paint to match the reference material. If there is reference material, that's what it should look like. So, using Moldy Ochre to start picking out the details on the hat, this is what he's supposed to look like. But for whatever reason, I was so psyched to paint these guys, and I'm not feeling it. For whatever reason, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's almost, it's like it kind of, I don't know. It's like it sucks.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, it did. So I repainted them off camera, changed up the colors, darker on the hat, more orange on the belt. And then I decided it was time to fix one of my biggest problems. Adding new lights at my desk is not going to help the fact that my big fat hand is constantly in the way of my footage. I've always had the camera over my right shoulder and pointed at my painting desk, and I am constantly repositioning, but then I zone out and I actually pay more attention to painting than framing my shot. So I always drift out of frame. So I decided to move the entire camera completely to the other side and over my left shoulder, pointing straight down. I looked at a lot of other people making content, and they've got more of a straight down perspective, so.
I am smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Yeah, I'm either smart or a copycat, but this is way better. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. This is going to help a lot. Something else that's going to help is going through and picking out all the highlights. So you're probably thinking right now, you had this base coated. Why? What are you doing? Why are you going all over this thing now with white? I'm not doing a slap chop on this because that would have started way back at the priming stage, but I did want to try screwing around and just see what would happen. What would happen if I base coated them, did kind of the slap chop dry brush, and then went back over it with inks and glazes? Because I am not a Citadel guy. I don't have the contrast paints. I'm not going to spend $300 on the entire line. But I can make some glazes. I have some inks, so I wanted to try this, and I mean, why not? These guys were simple, let's make them complicated. I could have just, like I said at the beginning, before they sucked, I could have just kept going. Repainting them with the new colors helped. I want to try something new. There are a couple of different things I said I want to try to do to make my painting better. Maybe bringing out more detail and a wider range of contrast, because my work is kind of lacking contrast. Sometimes my work's even a little bit muddy. So let's see if this helps. I've completely destroyed them now from where I started, but I have a plan. And now I'm excited to work on these guys for whatever reason. Because now is when I want to start coming in, like right here. I'm using Seraphim Sepia Wash from Citadel. I don't use their paints, but I love their washes, and I have a lot of their special effect paints, the textures, the earth and terrain and blood and stuff like that. But going through here and using this super thin and using it to stain the white. I don't want to cover it all, but what I'm doing with this now is I'm able to take that original Bogren brown base coat a little darker, and the places that I just did the white dry brush, stain them to look the way I want. So while I set Nimbo off to dry, if you've ever watched any of my videos before on my previous channel, I have a really bad habit of doing the bases before I should, and I end up having to go back and touch them up all the time. But I get bored while I'm waiting on something to dry, and so I grabbed some black, and this was the first time I'd ever used a Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl, and this is their coal black. And man, you can thin this stuff down forever and ever. I think I might be liking this paint a lot really soon. But yeah, using the coal black from Pro Acryl, it dries super matte. It was really awesome. I want to get some more and play around with those. But I picked up a few to try out, and I'll let you know my thoughts. But yeah, I got a real bad habit of doing the bases before I should. So now that those are done and the staining on the bristles for Nimbo are done, I can go back to Dukas and start doing some of the same thing. But this time, I'm starting off, instead of the broom, I want to work on the robes. And this time, I mentioned contrast paints earlier, and I'm not going to go sink a ton into all the Citadel contrasts, but when I grabbed that Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl Black to try out, I also grabbed some of the transparent red. I talked to a few different painters that I know and got some opinions on the Pro Acryl, and was like, you know, it's worth grabbing a few bottles and trying out at my local hobby store. Brought them home, tried them out for the first time on this guy, and yeah, I might be going all in on Pro Acryl very soon, because this stuff is awesome. But I'll talk about that in another video. Either way, using the transparent red, thinned down very slightly, a little bit of flow aid and a little bit of thinner, and this looks awesome. I mean, the highlights that are there, this is almost like slap chop. I mean, or I guess this is what you get when you put contrast over slap chop. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where the robes are. I'm liking this transparent paint. I want to play with a few more. But before I get ahead of myself, I think I need to get his broom where it needs to be. So the same thing I did with Nimbo, coming back with Seraphim Sepia Wash from Citadel, and going over and getting the darks darker and staining those whites down. And those will actually be some of my lightest colors. So back to the hat. I want to keep the darks and I want to keep those lights that I got from all that dry brushing. So I'm using an ink. This is a P3 blue ink. And I like this because unlike, Citadel's Drakenhof Nightshade, their blue wash, it's so dark, it's almost like midnight black. And I needed a bright blue, but something transparent. So to keep those white highlights, I think this worked well. I was able to stain them down and tint it all blue, but keep it, still keep the contrast that I had going. Coming back to Nimbo, I want to start going around and building up the wash in places. I've moved over to an Agrax Earthshade, and really thin, I'm trying to do it around where it's cinched up with that cord, but also I want to go heavy around the bottoms to make it almost look like his feet are dirty or have been in more contact with the floor. So a couple of passes, I'll probably come back to this a few more times and slowly build that up. I grabbed a flesh wash and started just really lightly, I mean barely, coming through and tinting in the face on Dukas. I didn't want to paint it. I didn't want it to lose all the tonal variation in there from the dry brushing, so I used a flesh wash, but really thinned down, and actually used it more like a stain, just to start tinting that. And of course, I'm going a little heavier in the ears, heavier under the nose, the places that it would make sense for it to be a little bit darker, and then touching up the eyes with some basic white. And he's starting to come along. Now I'm starting to click. I had some more transparent red on the palette and threw it on the eyes. I thought that was cool. And the same thing I'm doing with Nimbo, same thing to his broom. giving it a little bit of depth by where it's cinched up there, making it a little bit darker. I did a dark, diluted black. I think it was that same Monument Pro acryl that was on my palette, and I was screwing around while I was waiting for something else to dry, of course, and painted his ears black. And now chugging right along. Now I hit my stride. He's starting to look the way I wanted him to. Got the horns done with a khaki color, and then went over them with some washes. Busted out the P3 yellow ink to complement that blue ink that I used on the hat, and used it to get the cord around his waist to get the stars and stuff on the hat. And yeah, now I'm happy. Now I'm glad that I actually repainted him and started over, because now I'm psyched. Like, now he's coming along the way I wanted him to. He's looking like the reference art. It's how I pictured him. So same thing on Nimbo. I didn't want to lose all that dry brushing that we did by putting something thick and heavy. And I know right off the bat, if I go for Agrax Earthshade and use it like a stain, it's just going to get so dark brown it's almost black. So here, I grabbed Vallejo Game Air's Beastie Brown and made a glaze out of it, and then just slightly started to layer him up. I came back to Dukas while Nimbo was drying that first glaze, and started trying to do the darker at the bottom horns wash for him. And unlike Nimbo, I decided to go ahead and make his broom darker. I went back and looked at the reference art, which I swear I knew by heart. Yeah, and that's why I repainted him to begin with. I had the flesh tone off. I was off in a few areas. His broom is darker. It's more of a desaturated chocolate color. So I went back over this with an Agrax Earthshade to tint that white down and get it very desaturated. And I'm happy with that. I'll leave it right where it's at. Off camera, I did go through and try to pick out all the little tan stitching on the hat. And now I want to lighten up those horns again. I went a little too heavy with the washes. But the reason I busted out that dry brush wasn't for the horns. It was to do this kind of top edge of the broom. I was doing something earlier and I thought it would be nice to get one more level of highlights into the broom and the belt. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. I used Menoth White Base from P3 and did a very light kind of sideways dry brush across the belt and across the broom. I figured that worked out so well. I definitely want to, remember to do that with Nimbo. Real quick, I picked out the leaves. That was pretty, he's close to done at this point, and it's just fine detail. Grab the leaves on Nimbo. I still need to build up a little bit more of that glaze when it's dry. This wasn't quite dry, and I don't want to risk tearing up the bottom layer. But they're coming along nicely. This is much closer to what I wanted. So a couple more coats of this. I think I ended up doing like 5 coats of this glaze. It was a really thin glaze, but it worked the way I wanted it. It gave it a warmth. It was kind of a reddish brown. That's why I went with that Beastie Brown. And I did do a little bit of washes down around the base, close to where all the bristles or the fibers of the broom are cinched together there. I want to give it that kind of delineation, that shaded area down at the bottom, but I don't want to go over him with a ton of washes and muddy him up. Because that gamble that I took doing all the dry brushing on top of the base coating and then staining it almost like slap chop, it worked. I like it. It might be something I adopt into future things I paint, but as an experiment, so far this is a win. I have more contrast in these 2 simple guys than I've had in some of the other stuff I've painted, so I don't know, baby steps, move forward, fail upwards, I don't know. So now we're down to some fine details, and I wanted to start lightening up the robes more so than just using the white coming through the transparent red. I did grab Khador Red Base and went through and tried to pick out and just kind of edge line a little bit and bump that up closer to the orange. So that gives us some really nice, in my opinion, compared to my normal work. I've got a much better range of lights and darks on his robe. I kind of did the same thing with the brooms. Adding that last little bit, that last final highlight like I did on the brooms, I think adding the orange to the robes was a good call. You go watch anybody else's videos, they don't stop with 1 or 2 colors, they start adding in 4 or 5 different highlights. And so it can't hurt to bump mine up a little bit, right? Last but not least, I am a firm believer that the Black Rose Wars bases are a point of contention. Some people paint them bright green and bright red, and I disagree. I think these should be dead, like separated. Some people have argued they're growing through the cracks, fine, whatever. I think they should be dead. So for me, I use Thrall Flesh for the vines and Kador Red Base for the flowers. Then I go over it with Colia Green Shade and Nuln Oil until it kind of looks like a dead, desaturated stem and kind of blackened flowers. And that's how I've done all the bases for all the Black Rose War stuff I've painted so far. So now that the bases are done, that's pretty much it. We can get them on a turntable, take a good look at the final product, but yeah, these guys are ready for a final varnish for some protection, a good dull coat, and man, I'm really happy with these guys. These are some of the nicest things I've painted, I think, in a while. So yeah, I'm happy with all the little gambles I took, but we'll start to pick it apart and scrutinize it once I get it on a turntable. Okay, so here it is. Finished, totally done. Dukas and Nimbo from Black Rose Wars. So going on almost half an hour. I don't know what else I can say at this point. Let's, for me, just critique the final product. I'm really happy with these guys. When I first started, as you saw, I was just slapping colors on and I wasn't really feeling it. And at some point I had that change in motivation. And I think what did it was the ideas I had to do all the different shades and gradients and highlights on the bristles of the brooms. I'd watch somebody else's painting something and it gave me the idea to do it this way, and watching another video about slap chop and someone else with this, and just a different combination of ideas came to me at once. I'm trying out the transparent paints from Pro Acryl, which I'm a huge fan of. I definitely want to get some more of those. Doing the transparent on top of that white on his robe, that was awesome. I think that may be something I adopt into future work. I don't know. Doing the thing on the brooms, where I ended up base coating them, dry brushing them, and then using washes to stain that stark white down just a little bit. And then do like the muddier bottom. Look at Nimbo's feet, you can see they're definitely dirty. And that part around the middle, like his waist, almost like that cord is like a belt cinching his pants up kind of thing. You can see it's a little darker around where it's cinched up. And then the wash up on the handle, some around the top, where he's probably been, oil from people's hands, dirt and grime, and then down around where he's cinched up. It looks real enough to me for a cartoon broom. I'm pretty happy with it. As far as he goes, it's a fictional character dressed up like a fictional character, so you can only really pick it apart so much, but it's fun. I enjoyed it. Once I got into my stride and started having wins, the way the brooms came out, the way the robe came out, the way the light blue ink worked for the hat, felt like I kept having little tiny wins one after another. Being able to, use that dry brushing to pick out things like the stitching on the patchwork parts of Dukas's robe. Slow and steady worked for me on this, and I need to remember that. I need to take my time and paint slower and not rush through things, because this was probably, I don't know, I'm happy with this. It shows slight improvement, and that's the whole goal, right? Everything you paint should be slightly better than the last thing you painted, or something like that. Well, that's it, man. I don't know what else I can say about these guys. The more I look at them, the happier I am. I need to change my photo booth. I think I'm going to abandon the all black environment because I'm really sick of dust and shadow, like all the dust and Let's see what these guys look like in a white environment. So we'll be changing up not just the camera angle and a couple other little things, adding some lights to production, but now changing out of this gnarly black. It's just every little bit of dust shows. It's horrible. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking this out. Dukas and Nimbo. I looked forward to painting these guys, kind of lost my way, recovered, and ended up in a better place than I kind of thought I was going to. Had a few happy little accidents with these guys, tried a few new things, and it definitely worked out. Overall, I'm really pleased with these guys, and time to put them up on the done shelf and move on to the next video. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I have a lot of different things cooking. So that's it. That's my Dukas and Nimbo. I hope you liked them. I hope it helps you paint yours if you're working on painting up Black Rose Wars, and if not, maybe just some of the things I did give you some other ideas. So thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button. Help me get back into the algorithms. If you have anything to add, if you have a comment, you have something you'd like to say, drop that in the comments section below. And if you know somebody that might benefit from this video, share it with them. I don't mind. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Egghead Hobbies. I'm about to do a soft relaunch of the channel here through the holidays and really do a big relaunch of the channel in the new year. So please click that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications. And that's it, man. Get out of here. Go make something, go paint something, go do something creative, and have a great day. Have fun. We'll see you later.